welcome to this special spoiler review episode for the first 2 episodes of the Dynasty New England Patriots here. This fantastic 10-episode series on Apple TV that just dropped its first 2 episodes a couple of days ago. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, but I'll tell you what, there was no way I was going to review a Patriots documentary series without reuniting the Patriots. And I'll be damned if they were very available, or they were very kind enough to be available for this review. First of all, he is the man who is running the Insider website himself and also co-host on the Hot Mic, Jeff Sneider, hardcore Patriots fan. How are you, buddy?
Hold on, John.
Great shirt.
Look at that. The old school Patriot shirt. God love you from the Schmodown there. And of course, his partner in crime and also does the what is it, buttery popcorn pugs?
Extra movie butter. Popcorn.
Extra movie butter. That's right. Just had my old top 10 friend on there, Matt Nost, talking about the Oscars there. It is JTE. How are you, brother?
Doing good, man. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about the show. The show's based on a book called The Dynasty.
Yeah, from Jeff Benedict.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I bought that immediately, got the audiobook. Wasn't going to read it, but I listened to it in my car over like a month. It's like 45 hours long. So I was really curious to see what was going to be not put in this documentary.
Yeah.
But I do feel like just watching the first 2 episodes, it was amazing. I mean, but look who you're talking to here. I would eat this thing up all day. So I'm curious to hear what you think about it, not being a Patriots fan.
Yeah. Well, first let's get to Jeff, because I think you just gave your overall thoughts here. Jeff, what are your thoughts on the overall first 2 episodes? We're looking at Brady and how he comes in after Drew Bledsoe's injury, and then Belichik does not put Bledsoe back in the lineup. And then the second episode is all about the snowball and Brady being the young guy that they made fun of and pulled pranks on, but then eventually grabbing the reins and that tuck rule happening. What did you think of the first 2 episodes so far?
I mean, I got chills watching, the beginning. I forget what song plays like right before it goes like the Dynasty. I forget.
Oh, yeah.
But I was like, oh my God, like this is like bringing me back to what felt like a special time, in my life. And I did not grow up a football fan. I was totally like a Celtics guy, like did not really pay attention to the Patriots at all. Yeah, once Drew Bledsoe came to town, it was like, oh, you got to keep an eye on them. But I remember, I think I was at a volleyball tournament or doing something like that. Yeah. When Bledsoe got hurt, right? Yeah, and it was like, oh no, we're screwed. Like the season's over. And then, what happened. And it was magical being in high school, in the Boston region at that time.
Yeah, certainly that first episode, we should just jump into it. The first episode certainly explores what was going on there. You have Robert Kraft on there talking about how crazy Boston fans are about their sports. And I will say this to answer your question, JT. To me, this was a great first 2 episodes to get you into the world of this. Let me tell you something. 20 years ago, I would have never watched this because, when you hate teams, you hate teams. But as you get older, it's about appreciating how all this kismet and karma and synchronicity, whatever you want to call, came together and created the dynasty that it created. And so the first 2 episodes, just seeing how it all came about. I didn't know Robert Kraft was a hometown boy. I didn't know he was a New England guy. Like it's kind of like Dan Snyder with the Redskins and Commanders. Of course, this turned out much better than that. But I didn't know he was a hometown guy. So that was kind of a new thing for me. And I'd forgotten how much Drew Bledsoe's injury was a massive part of all of this happening. So let's just start there with the first episode, because we see Bledsoe's injury. We see Bledsoe is like the golden boy, right? He was so loved. And they didn't bring it up in the first episode, but like he went to the Super Bowl with Parcells. They lost to the Packers, their Favre's only Super Bowl win. So he had already been like kind of established. So then that injury happens against the Jets. But it's fascinating to me because you see him be a part of this with Mara, his wife. And as it progresses, I was really surprised that Drew Bledsoe was in this first episode with his wife and willing to do these interviews. What'd you think about that, JD? Did that surprise you too?
Yeah, that was great. So one thing the audiobook does a really good job is setting up Robert Kraft's story and his history and how he acquired the team. Like there's several chapters that are just dedicated to Kraft. Wow. And this seems to be kind of, just kind of talking about a little bit, but it doesn't go anywhere near as much as the book went into it.
Right.
But yeah, watching Drew Bledsoe, and I do remember my best friend, Andrew, growing up buying a Bledsoe jersey. Bledsoe, was signed at $100 million contract. There was hope in New England. I remember there was a buzz because people forget the Patriots were just Nobody listened to them. They had zero heat on them at all. They were kind of a joke. And with Bledsoe coming in and going to that Super Bowl with Parcells, things were starting to change. People's attitudes were starting to change. Like, oh, we can actually get excited about somebody else besides the Red Sox. And like Jeff was saying, the Celtics.
Yeah.
But for me, I just remember the biggest controversy I love about this documentary is getting the inside knowledge of Belichik and Kraft.
Yeah.
Because to me, that first episode, when they decided, or they touch, I think, a little bit more in the second episode, decision and how huge it was for Belichick to stick to his guns, and how much everybody, including Kraft, was like, "What are you doing?" Yeah. And that is like a make or break moment for Belichick, which is maybe why he thinks he could do no wrong, because I was right before. But that to me was fascinating, because to see Belichick sit down, who doesn't talk a whole bunch in these first 2 episodes. Yeah. I feel like we're going to get a little bit more from him, maybe later down, or maybe he's just like he is in his press conferences. He's pretty tight-lipped. Yeah. But the fascinating part for me was seeing Belichick and Kraft and all the decisions that were going on, all the pressure that they were getting into from behind the scenes and from the press. The press was dogging them for this. Yeah. They were showing old ESPN clips, and I loved seeing that stuff. So put back in that moment.
Yeah, what'd you think, Jeff? I mean, like you said, you coming from a different angle. JT seemed to be a little more engrossed in the world of the Patriots. You were coming in as kind of a newer fan to it, as you said, in high school when all this shit went down. So when Drew Bledsoe got injured, though, what is the thing that sucked you into the Patriots? Was this underdog story of a 6th-round draft pick who was almost Mr. Irrelevant himself, coming in and taking over the Patriots and then leading them to these playoffs? Is that what was what kind of grabbed you and made you a fan of this team?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely Brady, right? And just like the things that he was able to do as a rookie, or was he a rookie, or was he a second-year guy? I forget at that point.
No, he was a rook. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And just, leading us to the playoffs and all that stuff. It was just remarkable to watch because the expectations were so low and people were like, well, when are we putting Drew back in? The owner stuff is kind of fascinating, right? Because it's like, how often in your lifetime is your team even going to be up for sale?
Right.
Let me ask you, if you guys won $1 billion or billions of dollars, tonight, do you go buy a team because you love the sport or whatever, or would you only want your team? Because I would only want to buy the Celtics. Why else would I want to buy some other NBA team?
Right.
Yeah. Right. And so the fact that Kraft is a Massachusetts guy and the team was available, wasn't doing very well. He sensed an opportunity and he wanted to allocate resources into it. I think it was just a magical timing, right? Yeah. Everything coming together at the same time. And obviously there's luck here and there, a lot of luck,
right?
In the Patriots run, but it was a beautiful thing with all 3 of these things coming together. And that's one thing I don't think we appreciate enough about Robert Kraft. By the end of the documentary, without getting into specifics, you really do. You have to give this guy credit for holding it all together, because if it wasn't for him, it would have ended a lot sooner.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing that struck me too when I was watching it, because as I said, I'm not as knowledgeable about the inner workings. You were mentioning, JT. They go into some of the inner workings here. I was like, well, why isn't Robert stopping Bill from making this decision about not putting Drew back into the starting lineup? Why isn't he getting into? Why isn't he stopping him? And it's clear that Robert's not that kind of owner. He is not that kind of owner. He's like, I picked this guy to coach the team. He is going to make the decisions. And I got to respect the decisions he's going to make.
It's not that kind of franchise.
Right.
That's the thing. It's the know your job franchise. And that's from the head on down. And
right.
has to know his job and trust the other people to do theirs.
Yeah. Blue collar approach. Yeah. JT.
So one thing, I'm going to give a lot of context from the book that was in this show. What was real interesting to me was his experiences with Parcells and Pete Carroll and some of these other coaches. Is why when he did decide to hire Belichick, he says in the book, they say he was more hands-on with previous coaches, and that when he went to Belichick, he realized I need to just give up the team, give up those decisions to Belichick. Another great thing that I thought from the book was Kraft was a very good businessman.
Yeah.
The people that were owning the team did not want to sell the Patriots. So Kraft started buying property around them, including the parking lot where they all parked the cars to go watch the game. That's so he started buying everything around. He even bought concession stuff that went into the stadium. He was basically the oil of the machine.
Wow.
And it basically used that leverage to finally get the team, be able to buy them for a lot of money.
Great businessmen usually are people who can go the long game, play the long game. And
Yes,
certainly
that's
that
what he did.
situation here as well. But Jeff, since you weren't that big of a Drew Bledsoe guy, and then Brady comes into this situation, now you're seeing some behind the scenes stuff, right? Like the players laughing at Brady when he's trying to inspire. This reminds me of like the early parts of the Untouchables when they're laughing at Elliot Ness for let's go do some good. And he's essentially trying to do all his rah-rah shit that he did before, but
then he improved it. Like he always had that confidence, like we learned with him telling Belichek, like this is or Kraft, this is the best decision your franchise has ever made before he'd even done anything.
Right.
And so yeah, he was a locker room leader early on. I feel like maybe he hadn't earned it yet, but by the time he gets on the field, he lets his play speak for him, and the other guys are like, holy shit, like this kid Brady isn't fucking around. He's not just like a Band-Aid while Drew is out. Right. This could be the future. And that's exactly what Bill saw.
Yeah. And what, JT, for you, what were some of the surprises on the Bill Belichick side of things? I think people forget how much time he actually was a head coach in Cleveland and how he kind of established himself, come through the Giants organization and what have you. We see him, he's like so thin, some of those old videos of him designing the things, but like him essentially repeating the same patterns. I have to kill the old sacred dog and Bernie Kosar in Cleveland to be able to move on. He essentially fell into the same trope, except that Drew was a little bit younger than Bernie was. But we see him making this decision here with Tom Brady. Do you think this was a mad genius who knew what he was doing? Or was this a guy who like doesn't like to have anybody above him or question his control? Getting rid of these older dogs who have more of a connection to the city, it allows him to be the focus point or focal point of the situation. Do you think that might have been a part of it? Or do you think this was just a brilliant decision that happened to be a repetitive pattern with him in two organizations?
I think it was the beginning of a beautiful marriage between Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. One of the things I really found interesting in that first episode was Belichick said how much Brady would stay after practice and they would just study film, and that he used Brady as a way to see the game in a different way, that he's not just looking at it as a coach. He was learning from Brady. It wasn't just him teaching Brady. That he was a coach who was, a veteran. He had been in Cleveland. But to me, this was really about the beginning of somebody. Belichick is like, I can mold this guy to be the greatest quarterback because he saw the drive, he saw the competition, and he saw that this guy, he said this also, he's like, he's not going to turn the ball over. Now he did eventually. He was a rookie, but he said, I think Belichick's thing is we don't turn the ball over. We have a strong defense. We just need a competent quarterback. We could win these games. And I think what Brady was, maybe at the beginning, he just goes, this is a guy who's not going to mess up. Bledsoe's on his way out.
Yeah. And
then as their career went, he just exceeded probably everybody, even Belichick's expectations. But I think it was just the beginning of Belichick. Like, this guy is not like everybody else. Yeah. He looks at the game the way I look at it, and together I think we could build something amazing. And he took a lot of heat from it, that's for sure.
Yeah. And Jeff, we got to see the behind the scenes stuff with Brady and that guy Nugent who came in together, the lineman there. And we heard about their a condo that they got from Ty Law, and then
that stuff was hilarious.
Yeah, right? Techno Bowl.
But the crazy competitive nature of Tom Brady, I mean, throwing controllers at the wall, purposely trying to reset a game when he's losing, getting upset with people in the games when he's hanging out and doing stuff. Like, we saw this crazy competitive side that was similar to Jordan, like has that kind of like everybody else must lose to me. 100%. I hate lose. Right.
100% the Jordan Kobe sort of big dog attitude. But I love how we hear these guys talk in this series. Brady has a mouth like a sailor. Belichick swearing all the time in the locker room. Like, this is it's a very different side of these guys than you normally see. And I think you see it when that Ty Law story gets relayed and he starts dropping F-bombs. It was great.
He owes me $150,000. You go, Ty, bullshit. Ty, fucking you don't owe
least to me.
Yeah. I mean, JT, as I said, you're being more ingrained in the Patriots culture here, hearing about the time. How much of this stuff was new to you? Seeing the competitive nature and hearing from Nugent and his experiences with Tom, video of Tom being super drunk in the condo. Like, were you surprised by any of this?
Yeah, I looked over at my girlfriend. I said, I feel like I've seen every Patriots footage possible, and I'm seeing things here I've never seen because I've watched every documentary, I've seen every NFL films thing on the Patriots.
Yeah.
So to actually watch this and see footage I haven't seen before, I was like, oh, they really went digging and found some archive stuff. But yeah, I love seeing that stuff, like him as a rookie, him have Techno Bowl, having his friends and all these whole videos.
Yeah.
He looks so different. He looks like a rookie just out of college. I also like, showing the stuff from like they interview his mom, his dad, his sister.
Yeah.
I thought that was really nice to see kind of like what their opinion was, and seeing how he grew up in a competitive family with all these older sisters who were into sports, and that everything they did, even running to the front door, was competitive. And so that stuff was great. And the second episode really focuses on Brady for the first half. So they jump back in the playoffs. And, with the Patriots, you talk about the dynasty, you got to talk about the general. I mean, maybe, I guess Kraft's the president, Belichick's the general, but, Brady's on the front lines and he's leading the charge.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you talk about the sisters. I immediately flash back to Punch Drunk Love and how Adam Sandler's character is like so angry about being with, and you see a little element of that in Brady, in that his anger, right? Like you see in the movie, Sandler's kicking out windows, but here is Brady like throwing shit at the wall, getting super upset. And his own parents even talk about how they had to calm him down at times because of his overdeveloped competitive streak.
Yeah, Tommy's got a temper.
Is that something you're born with, though, Jeff? Like you have to be born with that. You don't get that bled into you or bred into you. You're born with that, don't you think?
Yes, I was always the hothead of the family, if you can believe it. If you can believe it.
Ditto, if you can believe that. All right, well, let's move on to episode 2. You talk about episode 2 here, JT. Let's move on to it. Yeah, we see the behind the scenes. I mean, we see Tom Brady with kind of a little bit of that skinny dude's paunch, and him trying to run, which looks like
baby face. He's got
the
that
combine.
The baby giraffe description of him running, which you can totally see, and all of that. Like, what did you think about them going and showing all those kinds of things, and Brady being okay with it? Because clearly he had to approve seeing himself in this way at that time.
I mean, he proved. I mean, look where he ended up. He's not worried about
that's true.
the latter. Again, great stuff. I mean, some of the stuff, for the combine and stuff, I've seen that stuff before. The picture of him with the shirt off is very iconic.
Yeah.
People talk about it all the time. I like, hearing stories about his sister, like how his footwork was always slow, and he did these 5 dots, which I've never heard of that exercise. And I'm like, damn, maybe I should start doing that. But he would just go, draw some dots, and like hearing stories like that, and it does remind me of Michael Jordan. You hear about these poker games he'd have, or he'd play dominoes with his friends like on vacation, and he would take it so seriously and just did not want to lose at all. And when you talk about Brady, you think of Brady and Jordan. That's one thing I love LeBron James, but he doesn't come off to me as somebody that has that killer instinct like those three guys, that kind of drive. He's one of the greatest players in the NBA ever.
Sure.
But would I take Kobe or MJ over him? I would, just because of that killer instinct that they have. They go psycho mode. LeBron doesn't really have that.
Yeah, Jeff, do you agree with that? Like seeing how Tom had these little games, even with himself as a kid, to try to get himself better. Like there were aspirations for more, clearly, when he was younger, and it just kind of had to show itself when he got to New England.
He grew up with sisters, right?
Yeah, all sisters.
Right, yeah. So. And I'm sure that they were, athletic in their own right and very competitive. But, I think you have to play those games with yourself, I'm going to get to the car early and, quicker and quicker, call shotgun or whatever it is. Right. You play those kinds of games with yourself. And I do think that it instills that early inside of you, that drive, that need to win, because that's really what it is. And there is, later in the series when they talk about the Atlanta game, there's a good from like Scott Pioli, who's just, we may be up 28-3 and everybody's high-fiving around us, but like this guy, you don't know who is across the field.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, we should talk about that real quick. And I'll swing back to JT on this one. JT, what'd you think? Who stood out to you of all the people they got to talk to there? They had Brewski, they had Scott Pioli, they had Brady's family. They had Ty Law, they had Damian Woody, and who really stood out to you of the people they got to like talk about that time for the first 2 episodes?
Probably Teddy Bruschi, because playing. I think a lot of people think Brady. They think the offense is what led those first 3 championships, when the defense was really the huge part. There's that moment where Bledsoe goes down and the defense goes up another level, and Bruschi's not afraid to go out there and be like, "Listen, the reason, one of the reasons we won these championships was because of our defense. And we had veterans, we had hard hitting guys, people that would knock you on your ass.
Right.
And like Brady just had to not lose the game for us. But then I think I'm looking forward to episode 3 because Brady, I think the first time really steps it up is in that Super Bowl when it comes to the game-winning drive against the Rams.
Yeah.
Like that to me is the moment where he just became a really good rookie who didn't lose us games to somebody who could just straight up win games because he also had a great run game at the time also. So great run game, control the clock, defense is going to dominate. Brady just has to not lose the game. And to me, the Super Bowl is when he goes to the next level.
Yeah, Jeff, what do you think of the people that got? I didn't mention Vinatieri.
Most fascinating guy, and I forget if he's in the first 2 episodes, though I think he is Ernie Adams.
Yeah, he comes out in the second episode. Yeah.
Dude, yeah, this is like getting the Wizard of Oz and getting an interview with him behind the curtain. Like, this guy was there for everything. And he is Bill's consigliere, basically.
Yeah.
He is like his right-hand man, and there was very little press on him. So the fact that they got him to speak, I just thought the whole, everything out of his mouth, I hung on.
Hold on. I got to ask you this because he goes after the reporters. He says that they're some derogatory name, and he says, if you're not in the building, you don't know.
Right, you don't matter. Exactly. Which is the mentality you have to have. I think it's the mentality that executives should have in Hollywood because, everyone, whether it's the media, whether it's social, Twitter, you just tune all that shit out and make the movie. Right. Yeah, and I think that they listen too much to that kind of stuff. And that's why we get watered down product.
Yeah. I do want to swing back to this because there's a couple more things I want to hit before we finish out our review, but I do want to swing back to this. Watching the progression of Belichick's stand by Brady. People think that Brady stepped in there and they won like 12. You guys won like 12 games in a row. That's not what happened. It went back and forth. There was like 500 stuff. But in the second episode, we get that 5-game winning streak that leads to them winning the AFC East and getting into the playoffs, only having to play 1 game against the Raiders, which we'll get to before they get to the AFC Championship against the Steelers. So, JT, were you surprised at how this machine went and like turned on Drew and focused on Tom and then stood by him, even though Tom was throwing those interceptions, was having trouble, they were losing games? Was this seeing this behind the scenes stuff? Did it surprise you?
Yeah. So first, I just want to say I love Ernie. I've seen him in some of the other documentaries, especially the Do Your Job and the whole Malcolm Butler play. They did a whole thing about Ernie and how he prepared the team. He's a legend. It's great to see him more.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, here's the thing. Watching this again, would Belichick made this move if he didn't have a stellar defense and stellar running game?
That's the question, right?
Because I think he knew what he had in the team that he could get away with putting Brady in there. Yeah. Now, to me, the way this episode 2 ends is when Brady gets injured.
Right.
And the next game, Bledsoe comes in and wins the game for them.
Yeah.
That's when the real controversy to me went to another level because then it's like you're going Super Bowl. Bledsoe just won you a playoff game. He's the $100 million man, and Belichick still goes back to Brady. That's why I can't wait for this next episode. But yeah, the thing is, I know everything that's going to happen, but it is great to see how they came to decisions and how they struggled with it. And I can't wait for the next episode because I feel like the next episode is really going to kind of put a bow on everything that we saw in these first 2 episodes.
Yeah, Jeff, wasn't there an element though? And I don't know if it's the second episode or if it's in this third episode where like Drew does come back from the injury, and Drew's not the same Drew. Drew is a little scared of getting hit, which they say is a very human.
Right.
Was that this episode?
That was before he got hit. So before he got hurt, Belichick was already thinking to himself, this guy's not staying there. The thing with a young rookie quarterback, they're careless with their body. They don't care about getting hit. They just want to get the job. Bledsoe, they made it, pretty good point to say like he's towards the end of his career, not the end, but he's starting it towards the end, and that he looks like he was just once he knew he was going to get hit, he put the ball away. Which listen, older quarterbacks do that. Brady did it at the end of his career.
Yeah,
true. If he knew there was something coming at him and he wasn't going to get a play out of it, he threw that thing away.
Better to take the sack than throw an interception.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And just throw it out of bounds and, just not take the hits. Brady was so good at not taking hits towards the end of his career because he knew exactly where he was going when the ball was snapped. If it wasn't there, he got rid of it because longevity.
They had a line
35.
always, though. Once Brady became Brady, right? They made sure that there was a line to protect Brady.
Yeah. Well, it's like the old Lions. You watch those nature docs. They can't attack like they used to. They can't defend like they used to. So they have to be smarter about how they go about protecting their herd when they can, or their pride, rather, when they can. But yeah, I thought that was – I remember that Drew – I always thought Drew was like – what do you call it? It's like the Phillip Rivers. Like he's good quarterback, but he's never really going to win you that big one. He doesn't have that mentality to win you that big one. So I wasn't surprised that Belichick made the move that he made. I was surprised that he stood by it when Drew came back. And Jeff, talk about that. I mean, we see the venerable Bob Ryan going off on some dude on one of those sports shows that used to be like the sports reporters, telling him, "Don't you create a quarterback controversy." Dan Shaughnessy is writing about it. I mean, like, did you like getting like those clips to give you an idea of how crazy this decision actually was?
Yes, because I don't think that there's any market, including New York, that's like as vicious with like the media. Like, I mean, maybe New York. New York's pretty bad.
New York's worse. Yeah, New York's worse.
New York's pretty bad. But like, Boston is a sports town, and those guys are pros, Ryan and Shaughnessy. Yeah, and I feel like the fans really did put a lot of stake. A lot of stake in what those guys said. Yeah. And clearly they were down on things, and they were blinded by the contracts, right? Drew is the $100 million man, and to the media, well, then you have to guy irresponsible, to keep a $100 million guy on the bench. What are we paying him to warm the bench for? But Bill stuck to his guns, and obviously he saw something in Brady that the rest of us would eventually get the opportunity to see many times over.
Yeah, and let's talk about this moment that is one of the moments that ends the second episode, the Snow Bowl, the Tuck Rule. I have to say, full disclosure, my girlfriend's aunt is Amy Trask, who was the CEO of the Raiders when this whole sequence of events happened. And there is not a time when Tom Brady's his name comes up at Thanksgiving or when we're hanging out having dinner at her place with her husband, that if Tom Brady comes up, that Tuck Rule gets mentioned. And the Raiders fans, the Raiders executives, the Raiders people still feel that in their bones. And there was a great 30 for 30 that came out like last year, a year and a half ago. That was pretty cool with him. And
Tuck Rule.
Yeah, the Tuck Rule one was great. What did you guys think about revisiting this moment and how, I mean, it still looks like a fumble to me, like by the rule, maybe not, but certainly by the eyesight. How did you think it profiled it here in the show? And then what do you feel about the Tuck Rule now in that moment? JT, I asked you, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I remember watching this documentary the other day. I have a distinct memory of being in my parents' living room, looking out the window and seeing the snow coming down. So I lived maybe an hour away from Foxborough. I didn't live far. Wow.
Okay.
And seeing the snow come down and then watching the game, being like, I can't believe they're playing in what's going outside my window right now because it was so heavy snow. Yeah, I think the Tuck Rule, listen, even Brady says in this doc, he's like, I thought it was a fumble. Everyone and their mother thought. I watched the game. I was like, they fumbled it. It was over. I think I walked in the other room. I was depressed. Yeah. I was just angry.
And Robert Kraft's son walked out of the stadium.
Yeah, exactly. So I think then I remember hearing, I think my mom or my sister yelled, like, it's not a fumble. I was like, what are you talking about? It's not a fumble. And I'm running back into the living room. And I don't know what they saw. I didn't know what the rule was. I was just happy that we were not eliminated. So I very quickly just kind of brushed over it because, and they said this a lot in the Tuck game, 30 for 30, the Tuck Rule. Like there was still a whole game. They still had to score two more times after that.
100%. There was still overtime.
100%. Listen, I get it. The game should have been over right there.
Right.
But your job as a team is to rebound and still finish off the game, even if that happens. And Patriots came out and won it. Vinatieri, who was a god in New England for his first three Super Bowls, like he made his name that day. And yeah, it's one of those games I'll never forget because, like the 2004 Red Sox, it was their first title that they were going for. You know what I mean? Like in a long time.
From Vinatieri, an incredible kick in that amount of snow, doing that just planting your leg, making sure you don't slip on that. The ball's probably rock hard. Incredible kick. As for the Tuck Rule,
what do you think about how they profiled it?
More opinions, right? Because it was fascinating to hear Brady think that. I wanted them to go through everybody, who thought it was a fumble, who thought it was a tuck. But it's also he does drop his arm, I mean, it's not like they're calling something
Right.
that's not there, right? Like they saw something that made them invoke the tuck rule. I don't remember. Did the referee sort of bring that up on his own, or did Belichik get in his? Did the coaching have anything?
It was a 2-minute rule, so they had a review because it was under 2 minutes, so they
Okay, so
reviewed
it's
it.
not like Belichik is like, actually,
No,
that's
no.
the rule, and you should check on this.
Yeah.
Okay, so they remembered it on their own, and it's because he does drop his arm, and they saw something there, so it's not a phantom call. But yeah, when you don't slow it down, it looks to the human eye like a fumble. Yes. I'm sure.
Yeah, I like in the tuck rule to Jeff Sneider guessing that 5-pointer to win the tag team title. Like nobody, he would have lost. We should have lost. He should have lost to us.
Robert Duvall.
But he said Robert Duvall, even though he was thinking someone else. And the tuck rule is essentially what that was. And you guys got the title. And then you ran with the titles for over a year,
Yeah.
So like it's kind of similar, the tuck rule in that way, because it could have gone either way. And are the Patriots still champions down the road as tag team champions as well? I don't know. Are the Patriots Super Bowl champions next year? Does Belichick get questioned for sitting Bledsoe and playing Tom Brady and they're out in the snow? Like there could have been so many things that happened to the Patriots football team if the tuck rule doesn't get enacted in this moment and makes the decision. Yeah.
Things work out the way that they're supposed to. And I find that that's true of Hollywood as well. When you think of the great casting what ifs, the person who got the role is the person who should have gotten the role probably all along.
I mean, the Bledsoe hit. If Bledsoe didn't get sent to the hospital, Brady might have never had a chance to start a game.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy though that they said he could have died.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was filling up with blood. His lung.
Bledsoe could have died.
One thing that was covered in the book that wasn't in this episode was Brady had a pretty close relationship with Bledsoe. Like he would regularly go to his house for dinners.
Yeah.
And the night he went to a hospital, Brady went to the hospital, visited him and his family in the hospital the night he went there. Which they didn't. I was kind of shocked they didn't really touch on that in the documentary because this may look like they aren't that close.
Yeah.
They're just kind of coworkers. But from the book, it really paints a different picture of them being really close. And that Bledsoe almost like took him in as like a surrogate family while because Brady's family was all on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And that Bledsoe's family was like a surrogate family for him throughout the season. So
that's a shame. But I guess they want drama, right? They want drama when you're watching the doc series.
That's one thing you don't see in the documentary. There's not a lot of that on the reverse, Josh, where it's like, Brady took me under his wing. You don't hear that from like the other QBs.
Interesting.
You just hear about him putting purple dye in his socks and shit and all of that stuff. One last thing I'll ask you guys about this. Right at the end of this, before we get to the Pittsburgh moment, they're running out onto the field and Bledsoe Brady gets hit and Bledsoe comes in. After they win the Raiders game, we see them in the locker room after just one victory in the playoffs. They are yelling, "Champs! We're going to be champs!" Like Bruschi, even you see him saying back and forth, like, "We're destined. It's our time."
Right.
Explain to me how you can think that after just one game in a
because this is the city that believes in curses, right? This is the city that believes in curses. And just just like anything else, negative, positive, like the opposite. There's an opposing force,
right?
And so if you believe in curses, then you have to believe in destiny and fate. And I think that is what sort of powered this team. Basically, was the entire region getting behind them and believing this could actually happen.
Yeah.
Also, the worst game they had of the season was against the Rams, the greatest show on turf.
Right.
And I think that defense said, if Brady doesn't throw those picks, we're in this game and we possibly could have won it.
Yeah.
So I think, it's one of those things where you meet a team and you're like, they're not as bad as everyone says they are. They're not the greatest show on turf. We could roll with these guys.
Yeah.
If Brady just doesn't have those turnovers, we could beat the champs. If you feel that way, you feel like you could beat anybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point because, later on that comes back to bite the Patriots when the Giants play them in that last game of the season, go toe-to-toe with them, barely lose in the undefeated season, and then beat them in the Super Bowl. So that's an excellent point, JT.
It's very similar. It happens in the NFL a lot, honestly.
Yeah, it does, actually. You're right. Any final words on these first two episodes, gentlemen? We should wrap it up. We're at almost 35 minutes. Any final words on these two episodes and what we can look forward to maybe in the next few episodes coming up?
I'm really looking forward to more Belichick. I feel like he's not in it as much as I want him to in these first two episodes.
Right.
And especially when we get to things like the Deflategate and Spygate.
Yeah.
I'm really looking to see how hard they dive into that. And I want to hear from him a little bit, like what his opinion, why these things happened. And, I mean, I remember Belichick, he was kind of deflecting. He's like, asked a quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like from people who watch more episodes is the Brady Belichick was way worse. The relationship was way worse towards the end than even I thought.
Yeah.
They do touch on it in the book. They do touch on it, but
yeah.
I never hear from Brady or Belichick in the book. It's literally just secondhand account, third-hand accounts. So I am curious to see those two talk about their relationship towards the end and how they eventually parted ways. And also, I hear Kraft says some crazy shit about Belichick, so I'm waiting for that too.
Right.
It's like I'm just glad to get all this dirty laundry out and like we can move on to the greatest dynasty in football.
Well, that's the question, and I'm going to bring that up in my criticism. But it's like,
how many episodes did you see, Jeff?
I've seen the whole thing. If Bill
Belichick
was still coaching the Patriots, would he still be coaching the Patriots after this documentary?
Oh,
interesting.
That's a big question. Like, if this last season had gone really well, this documentary still comes out the day that it does, is Belichick staying on after everything that you see in this documentary? But that's the sort of thing is also like, that's my criticism of the documentary is The Last Dance in the Jordan documentary was as good as it was because these guys were sort of out of the league and they could look back on it.
Good point.
Belichick is still trying to get like coaching jobs and stuff like thus there are things that you want to hear from him, from Brady. Yeah. And they just will not address it. I mean, they just say, we said what all we need to say, and they don't get into it. And that's a bummer because you obviously want to hear those mysteries sort of.
I listened to Brady's podcast, and he still talks lovingly about Belichick. He's even had him on the podcast since he left. Like, they definitely seems like they're in a better place now that they're both in different areas of their life and they're no longer working together. Because listen, what they've achieved together will likely never be achieved again, or at least maybe not in our lifetime. So I do think, I still want to know more about what soured. Was it just because of, Brady's trainer, the TB12 stuff? Oh yeah. It really sounds like from Kraft, some of the little tidbits I heard is Kraft basically was like, Belichick told him that Brady's done. Like he's not going to be able to do it anymore. And then he goes and wins in Tampa. So I want to see them deal with that.
Tampa, for the record.
Yeah, a good team, but that's all he needed. You give him a decent team, you have a shot.
Those guys are inextricably linked. They always will be. But to tease it just a little, the people who I was really excited to hear from were Gronk, right?
Yeah.
Edelman.
He doesn't come in until like halfway through.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Malcolm Butler. Yeah, that's like an episode.
Yes.
And then the really fun one is when the Patriots get the most athletic player they've ever had, right?
Randy.
Yeah.
Randy
hell yeah, Randy Moss, man.
Yeah.
I feel bad he didn't win one with the team because he deserved one, man.
That's fair. Is Peyton Manning in the upcoming episodes at all?
Not that I recall.
What? How do you not have Peyton?
Maybe you hear from him like here and there, but no, he's not going to be memorable.
What about Josh McDaniels? They talk to him at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
I figured. Okay.
There we go. Bridget Moynihan? No, I'm just joking. All right. Anyway, let's wrap up this review. Thank you to the two gentlemen who joined me to have a fun conversation here about these first two episodes of the Dynasty here on Apple TV. JT, please let people know where they can find you, brother, and what you got going on.
Yeah, check me out on Twitter down there, JT Movie Thinks, and check out the Extra Movie Butter podcast. We're going to be reviewing Madam Web next week. Woo! That was a movie. It was something. I can. I mean, Sony just give up Spider-Man. They won't because it makes so much money. Exactly. Just don't make any more of these movies. Like, who's asking for a Madam Web movie? I don't know.
Those are some Pete Carroll Patriots seasons there. Jeff, please let people know where they can find you and subscribe to your newsletter as well, man.
TheInsnider.com for all kinds of scoops, analysis, and reviews, but not Madam Web because I did not see that movie and I won't see it till it begins streaming because there's no way I'm paying for that.
There you go. As for me, at the Rocha Says on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. If you've enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to the channel down below. Hit a like. These are the kind of random things I love to do with great people like Jeff and JT who are willing to come on and have fun. So subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments down below. If you're a Patriots fan, what do you remember? If you're a Patriots hater, what did you get out of these first two episodes? Let us know all that down in the comments section below as well. Hit a like on the video and share it on your social media. And until next time, y'all take care of yourselves. Be well. We're not saying we're committing to reviewing each episode, but I think we'll wait till the end of the season, Then we'll do a big mega review, and hopefully we can convince Boston's own Roxy Strider to join us for a nice foursome to talk about the show. And until then, y'all take care of yourselves. Be well. We'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode or review here on the Outlaw Nation. Peace.